Marc Miller is Canada's federal immigration minister. He's in town this week because it is Canadian Citizenship Week. But a topic that we've been discussing for quite some time concerns immigration, federal government's actions on immigration. And only a couple of weeks ago, roughly, after Francois Legault failed to get any concessions from the federal government, he talked about and actually said it out loud, didn't just think about it, potentially holding a referendum based on immigration. At which point, Marc Miller, when asked about it, said this.
Well, look, any country that gives away its immigration powers to a third party, anyone else, a federated state, is no longer a country.
Okay, well, that was then. This is now. Marc Miller is on the line. Minister, thank you for being here this afternoon. Look, I don't know if Francois Legault's threat was hyperbole or not. Where are we now on this? I know you deal with Christine Frechette. She's your basically counterpart in Quebec. How is that negotiation, or how is that discussion going?
Thanks, Aaron, for having me on. I have a productive relationship with Christine Frechette. I feel like it's someone that I can work with, and she's certainly showed some real openness to getting some real things done. I have not changed my opinion or my view on what I said a few weeks ago. But I think, the focus that Canadians want us to get right, whether you're talking about Quebec or any other provinces, is to actually make sure that we do immigration in the right way. We've built a really important consensus in this country over the value of immigration, its contribution, notably to who we are as a country, but also to doing some things that other countries are facing, which is making sure the labor force is young. If we want to have that ratio of workers to retirees, to make sure we have all the social services and healthcare services that people need and have become part of our national identity. But again, that's come with a number of conundrums, and it's something I think Canadians increasingly want us to be better coordinated and get right. The relationship we have with Quebec is one that's unique, and I know you know about it, but it's 40 years old. It gives a lot of power to Quebec to choose and select people that come to Quebec, and I think my focus is on getting that relationship right. Since we got into power, we've transferred about $5.4 billion to Quebec to help with francisation and the services that they provide to newcomers. So that's a relationship. I think I just want to get it right and make sure we both, Christine and I, focus on the responsibilities that we have, and then how we coordinate it to make sure that we're not letting things fall through the cracks.
Yeah, yet part of the concern, I guess, and this is perhaps unique to Quebec, maybe it's not. We've heard the Premier speak to this on numerous occasions, this idea that, temporary foreign workers coming here, and the fact that you say the federal government wants to realize that there are a lot of them, perhaps too many coming in. You want to make them permanent residents. How does that conversion work?
Yeah, well, I think there's some nuance to that. If you look at the progression of people that are temporarily or have been temporarily in this country in the last few years, it's jumped from about 2% to close to 6-7%. Now, there's a number of reasons for that. Even in Quebec's jurisdiction that controls solely and exclusively, that's doubled or even tripled. We've had a lot of asylum seekers that get counted into that temporary bucket, as well as 300,000 people from Ukraine, as well as international students and postgraduate work permits. That proportion doesn't necessarily affect Quebec that badly, but it's a trend across the country, and it's undoubtable that volume has impacted things like affordability and the cost of shelter. Now, these are also productive these are people that are contributing to the economy, and if we don't get that right, we have the potential of doing damage to the economy. So I met with my counterparts last week in Montreal. I think we all agreed that we can all do a better job serving Canadians and making sure that we're properly coordinated in reducing the numbers of people that are here temporarily, and that was positive. I think first time no one cares that much about communiques, but first time I think in a long time that we had a unanimous communique on the path forward. So that I think is positive in terms of our working relationships. But Canadians want to see results, and I think that's what I'll be focused on in the next few months, including sort of the deadline that's been set by the CAQ government.
But the argument here, I talked to Jean Boulet, the labor minister, earlier in the week, and I asked the question, I said, for all this idea of limiting the number of temporary foreign workers coming here, all you hear, and he confirmed this was the case, from employers is, we need to hire people. We can't find people to hire. There's a labor shortage here. So how do you square that circle?
It's a difficult one, Aaron. We have gotten, as a country, addicted to temporary foreign work. We've taken a number of measures post-COVID to make sure that the businesses that were missing people in their labor force could increase the number of temporary foreign workers, but it's become sometimes a knee-jerk reaction. So I think there's an adjustment certainly on behalf of industry that needs to take place. I think they've acknowledged that, but doing it in the right way and without consultation, without the proper engagement, has the possibility of doing damage to areas of the economy that we don't want to see things happen to, particularly in the food and food production areas where we're seeing price inflation. So we don't want to contribute to a problem while trying to fix it at the same time.
Is it fair to say, and I think you may have said this, so if you have, I'm sorry for re-asking the question, did the government federally make a mistake by allowing too many people to come into Canada?
I don't think so. I think the measures that we took post-COVID were the right things to do at the time. We're in a different situation now with markets tightening. I think it is something where whenever you have sort of a tap that doesn't have checks and balances to it, it lends itself to excess. The federal government doesn't control everything, but we do have a responsibility to act when we see things sort of get out of kilter. That is constant with some of the steps I took when it comes to international students where you'd seen spikes in the last few years.
Yeah.
And those are impacting in some markets the cost of shelter, affordability, rent, and those are measures I think will need to continue. Again, having the federal government doing things where you have provinces understanding their labor forces better than the federal government is something we need to acknowledge and adjust to. So these will be conversations and work with our respective governments over the next few months to adjust and adapt to the reality of the economy today that's different from what it was 2 years ago.
I would just ask you as a final question with respect to, you mentioned, foreign students coming here, and I know that the government has made or gone out of its way to suggest, okay, we realized that number was too big. You have a target now to work towards?
Yeah, well, we worked on a principle of no new net growth with a number of adjustments that may impact that. So it varies across the country. Quebec and Alberta, for example, have been relatively responsible in what they've done, probably less so in Ontario and BC. So it'll depend on the province, depending on the institutions. This is also a process in making sure that Ontario provinces in general assume their responsibility, which they largely haven't in the sphere of international students. And in theory, a good chunk of that is their jurisdiction. So, it's not a wait and see. We've taken some actions and we'll see how this rolls out. But at the end of the day, people have to make sure they're acting properly within their jurisdiction to make sure we have a sound immigration system that follows with it.
Minister, I thank you so much. I appreciate your time. As you know, you're always welcome to come back. So
thank you, Aaron. Looking forward to it.
Thank you. Marc Miller, Federal Immigration Minister.